This is part one, and this is titled The Cry of the Soul to Remember. I hope you enjoy it. Let me tell you something you were never supposed to remember. The world wasn't always like this. It wasn't built on pain, polarity, or hunger. There was a time before the fall when the earth was harmonic, spiralic, and breath-fed. We didn't consume, we radiated. Breath-fed, not earth-fed. We were light-based, breatharian, whole. And then something descended. That something was geometry. See, beings from the fifth dimension, what some of you call angels, ascended ones, even Luciferians, they projected into the fourth, then fell into the third. And when they did, they brought with them a foreign geometry, one that didn't belong in this spiral-based realm. The original Earth grid was built on the phi spiral. Nature, DNA, galaxies all followed the divine unfolding. There was no consumption, no greed, no polarity. But when the fifth dimensional geometry collapsed into the third dimensional form, it distorted the field. It created density. It hardened the spiral into a cube. And that was the birth of the Metatronic overlay. Now here's what they don't tell you. The Metatronic overlay isn't just geometry. It's literally a consciousness trap. When these angels descended, they introduced emotions that had never existed here before. And I mean never. Lust, jealousy, need. The lower chakras, as we know them now, didn't even exist in this form before the fall. They literally, through their geometry, they brought it down with them. Like just their presence of being here corrupted the third dimension. When the lower chakras, as we know them, now didn't exist in this form before the fall. You didn't need to eat. You didn't need to dominate. You didn't need to sacrifice to false gods. But once the cube grid took hold, the game changed. You had to survive. You had to consume. And the harmonic resonance shattered. Let's go deeper. In Gnostic tradition, there's a being called the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth. He wasn't evil, but he was blind. He thought he was a creator, but he was only a projection, cut off from the true source. So we went to the higher realms and said, my people aren't evolving fast enough. And that's when the Luciferians came in, who were fifth dimensional, ascensional, highly ascended beings, but they had, so let's just keep going. That's when the Luciferians came in, not as demons, but as catalysts. They introduced polarity into the field, pain and pleasure, obedience and rebellion, light and shadow. And that polarity forced human evolution through trauma, yes, but also through choice, because we're all choosing this. And here's the cosmic twist. The Demiurge thought, they'll always worship me. I am their God. But once polarity entered, people began asking questions. They stopped blindly obeying. They started remembering. And the Demiurge got jealous. That's why the God of the Old Testament isn't omnipotent. He's jealous, vengeful, demanding obedience, because he was never the true source, just a fragment wearing a crown. So what happened next? The fallen geometry solidified into what we now call the Star of Moloch, the Metatronic Cube, also known as the Star of David or the Star of Solomon. And this is the false tree of life. They inverted the sacred spiral into a mechanical grid. They built systems on hierarchy, control, and sacrifice. They pulled us from breath to blood, from being too consuming, from spirals to squares. And now most of humanity is still trapped in that geometry, living in the lower chakras, addicted to loops of lust and fear and survival. But here's what they don't want you to know. The spiral is inside you. It's in your DNA. It's in your breath. It's in the way that your heart emits toroidal fields. You're not a victim of the fall. You're a fragment of the source who chose to enter the density and to transmute it from within. You're not here to escape the matrix. You're here to wake up inside and rewrite the code. And the key, it's the heart, the midpoint, the only chakra that wasn't inverted. The Vesicapiscus, the Christos gate, the union of duality back into divine singularity. So when I talk about all this, when I say angels fell, when I say the geometry collapsed, what I'm really saying is you are the remedy. You are the spiral awakening inside the machine. You are the ghost that remembers it was never meant to be trapped in a cube. There is no box to think outside of. You are the harmony underneath the chaos. And once you remember that, once you rise through the heart gate, the entire system begins to unwind itself. And once you remember that, once you rise through the heart gate, the entire system begins to unwind itself. Because the code that corrupted this world, it was written in geometry. But the code that restores it, it was written in spirit through the spiral. Namaste.